A very, very good evening. A warm welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Pick and Pay. And welcome to another new location. Am I sitting in an exclusive wine cellar? Is this a private collection that I've dipped in to see? Well, actually, it's my delightful sister-in-law Angelique's home, because Johannesburg has been struck by power outages, at least where I live. And so a mad dash across town to get back online and up and running. And I've done so just in time, because this is not a show I wanted to miss. Today we celebrate what has become one of the most influential reviews of the South African wine landscape each year. The review put out by the master of wine, Tim Atkin, who's become something of a high priest of South African wine in the UK, and who each year reviews an extraordinary amount of wine. I'm not sure quite how he gets through so much, particularly for this report, given that it was all done remotely. He's normally in South Africa, but for obvious reasons couldn't be. And he brought out a report which not only gave some particularly high praise to the South African wine industry, I think, to paraphrase Tim, the most exciting wine producing country in the new world at the moment. And it's reflected in the scores, but he also gave some particularly personal accolades, and it's those accolades which we look at this evening. His winemaker of the year, his young winemaker of the year, the overall best red, the overall best white, and his winemaking legend. A legend is a term that gets thrown about pretty quickly. You play half a dozen games of rugby for your country, or one season for a big football team, and you're a legend. But if you take the word in its true sense, then one of our guests today is very much that, part of the fabric and the backbone of South African wine. So we're going to meet those guests in just a moment. Before we do that, a couple of things to look out for online a little earlier today. If you haven't seen it yet, on both Facebook and on YouTube, your chance to see some time spent down in the Klein Karoo. We went down to visit Leon and Margot at the Fledge, and in particular to discuss their Chenin Blanc as the final part of our Adventures in Chenin series with the Chenin Blanc Association. Some lovely wines, very different wine, and some great food. I can tell you that Bride Ostrich Fillet makes a fine companion to Chenin Blanc, and you can get the proof of that in the latest episode, which is up and online. Tomorrow, you'll see on the Dan Really Likes Wine channels, time spent at the opening of the Tang Restaurant Mirabelle range, the launch thereof. Nicky van der Walt with his Swartland Rosé, a lovely Cinsault Mourvèdre collaboration. Michael Friedjon, Tinashe Nyamudoka, Steve Steinfeld amongst the guests, and we caught up with all of them. And also, yes, on Thursday, 12 o'clock, a very special broadcast as we announce the top 10 in the Standard Bank Chenin Blanc top 10 competition. Who will those 10 be? Well, you can find out 12 o'clock on Thursday. I'll be there along with a number of guests, including James Peterson, the head judge of that competition, and Ken Forrester, the chairperson of the Chenin Blanc Association. So it's a busy week on Dan Really Likes Wine. It kicks off on the highest possible note. So let's meet what Tim Atkin himself called the Harlem Globetrotters of South African wine. It is an extremely warm welcome to our winemaker of the year, Peter-Allan Finlayson, our young winemaker, Elizma Visser. We've got our best white in Chris Alheit, and we've got our legend, Charles Back. We're hoping Eben Sadie, but for now, guys, welcome. Lovely to have all of you on, and thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Dan.
Well, let's kick off with our winemaker of the year. I'm not allowed to call him Peter-Allan anymore. It has to be Mr. Finlayson because he's now terribly important in the wine world. What was it like getting that notice, getting that news that Tim Atkin had picked you out as top of the bunch, Mr. Finlayson?
Dan, yeah, I mean, I suffered from a bit of imposter syndrome my whole winemaking career, you know, so I certainly feel like a bit of an imposter in getting the winemaker of the year, but I'll absolutely take it. And I've been telling people to take me seriously in this industry, you know, all along, and now, you know, I can basically back that up with something.
It's a great accolade to get, and it's one that puts you in very esteemed company. If I were to ask you, and this is going to require setting modesty aside a little, which winemakers don't do naturally, if I would ask you, Peter-Allan, why do you think you were given this award by Tim? What would your answer be?
Sure. Look, I think I'm fortunate enough to work, you know, under sort of two, wine companies, wine brands with Chris Alheit and Kloof, so in those two brands, I've got quite a wide variety of wines that I think are pretty good quality. And the fact that I did well in the report with Chardonnay, Pinot, Chenin, Syrah, and Cab Franc, I think went a long way towards being given the accolade.
And what do you think it now does? You spoke about having a little bit of imposter syndrome. I don't think it was deserved at all. You've been making fabulous wine for some time now. But what does it do both for you personally in your own sense of, I think the rest of the world now knows what I'm doing, but also for you as the director of these brands and the wine that you're producing?
Yeah, look, I think, it certainly increases the pressure for the next vintage of wines, which we're already obviously working on, so it certainly can't rest on our laurels going forward. But it also gives a bit of a boost, and particularly with Kloof, there's a dream my father-in-law had, starting 20 plus years ago. And it wasn't always easy there in the beginning. He did things on a fairly large scale. And it's really fantastic, just for him to know that, the vineyards he planted and the place that he chose to plant those vineyards has been vindicated. It was a hell of an ambitious project. Anyone that's been out to Kloof, that's been out to the top vineyards, it's a pretty difficult place to farm and to plant vineyards. And I think that's the most kind of gratifying thing of all of this, is just to know that, the vision that he had is really, really paid off.
It certainly has, and I'm really excited about where this goes, because it's part of a tremendous journey. It puts you a little further down the road. We've got a young winemaker of the year who's also on the show this evening. Elizma, congratulations. Similar question to the one I fired off to Mr. Finlayson. What was your response when you found out that, according to Tim Atkin, you are the young winemaker of the year?
Oh wow! Yeah, I was losing it for the first half an hour. It was huge. I had boys with me and my husband. It's a very surreal moment. I will never forget it. It's a huge compliment still having the young part in front of my winemaker title, just for some fun. But no, it's been an interesting journey. The last 5 years at Olifantsberg, I had this vision for the brand when I got there, and I wanted to execute, and I was very focused on doing something different in a place, very serene place, and that just meant that my vision and my dedication paid off. So I'm a very focused winemaker, but I'm also a bit adventurous in the way I make wine. So I was just very fortunate to get this award for my consistency the last 4 or 5 years at this brand. But again, as Peter-Allan said, if you work with really amazing grapes and a really, really unique spot, then it does help you along the way. You still have to have vision though. So that's just my feeling.
You've got this accolade from somebody whose thoughts on South African wine are held in such high regard. It's one thing to have people at home celebrate you, and that's always great. But when you've got somebody like Tim Atkin who sits in this international platform, how much more does that mean to you that you've been picked out and given this particular accolade?
Listen, the response from across the world within the industry has been enormous. I have to thank each and everyone sending me a message. I've never felt so full of joy in a few years. Just the support from everyone, just like screaming with me, very excited for my future, my career, and so that was huge. All of my customers across the world sending me messages, personal messages. That just made me realize that you do have such an effect on your consumers and your colleagues, and it really does feel great. I mean, and so it's important how you have yourself within the industry, and it's important the camaraderie that we have within our industry is so important, especially in South Africa. And I've seen it once again. I just love our South African wine industry for that.
It's some great words. I love the industry. You just keep making such fabulous wine, which I get to drink, and I think that applies to a lot of the people watching at the moment. Daryl Balfour, the owner of some of the greatest wines in South Africa. Good evening, Dan, Tim, Peter-Allan, Eben, Butch, Elizma, and my friends who are watching. One of those friends is Angela Lloyd, drinking the Crystallum Clay Shales 2018 to celebrate yet another Finlayson at the top of the pile. Great wine, great winemaker, great family, certainly is. Daryl following up there with his good evening and wants to know if Peter is surprised to see Peter-Allan here. Surf no good in Walker Bay this evening. We'll find out from Peter-Allan a little later. And then Angela following up with Elizma. So delighted for Elizma. I've been a big fan of her in Olifantsberg since she started on this beautiful farm 5 years ago. The wines have grown in quality and character every year. And they've done so as they've grown in quality over at Gabrielskloof and with the Crystallum range, because there are two very talented winemakers at the helm. Yeah, but I think we have you, so let's bring you in if we may. And before we talk about your extraordinary 100 points and the wonderful run for your wines, give us your thoughts as one of the most revered and admired winemakers in South Africa on both Peter-Allan and Elizma, two winemakers of the year.
Oh, obviously, I think all the, South Africa is in a very good space at this point in time, and good news at this stage, taking into account where the world is. It is a bit, it's a different space we find ourselves in. So, the report this year is good. I think people, obviously, people look at the big points and look at this and that, but I think one must look at it as a whole and see how far South African wines have come in the last, especially 10 years. So, yeah, South Africa is in a very, very exciting space, and I think all the young guys and people that's entering, and if you look at Olifantsberg, and it's kind of a new terroir out there, and Peter-Allan from Bot River, it's Swartland. When I arrived in the Swartland, when I started out, it was pretty much Spice Root and Grootepos wines at that stage, and today we've got 35 wineries in the Swartland. So it's just indicative of a country that's being explored and it's being developed, and it's very good for everything. Good press is good press, and at this stage in the world where it's at, it's most welcome.
Eben, I've tried on this show before and failed dismally to get you to take some credit. You are a very modest man when it comes to your wine, but I'm going to try again. You got your 100 points once more, which we'll discuss in a moment. When you look at what you've done with your Sadie family wines over the last stretch, and then you see where South African wine is now, I think for all of us, we know what a driver you've been for South African wine going forward. How much pride do you take in seeing people you've worked with, people who've worked for you, people who have been inspired by the wine that you've produced, moving into their own space, doing so well, and lifting up this whole industry that you've been such a big part of now for so long?
Yeah, Dan, I think, the saying is, a rising tide lifts all boats. And, when you get into a scenario where a lot of wines, it's not like one or two shooters that's shooting out the lights at the moment. I think across South Africa, in all the regions, there's such a great representation of definitions, styles, and, where I think 20 years ago, every winery tried to be everything to everyone. The regions, the wineries, I think the focus that's shifted into wineries. Wineries have decided, we're going to put our head down. We work with Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. Another winery would decide, listen, we're going to go for Method Cup Classic. And another winery will decide, listen, we're going to focus on fruit-driven, fresh style white wines. And I think that was the important change in South Africa for me, that where the realization to be really good, you can't be everything to everyone. And for me, it's a good drive, and I think a lot of people that I speak to, and it's Tim Atkin, but I mean, there's a lot of people that's very pro South Africa at this stage, and we're in a very, very good moment. And when people speak about South Africa and what's the most interesting place in South Africa right now, in the southern hemisphere right now, it's definitely South Africa, and even in the old world sectors, South Africa is just. We are, all I'll say is we're a really tenacious bunch, that with very little we can produce quite a bit. So, and even in the Swartland, in our region, there's new areas being planted, new varieties being planted, new guys coming to the fore. It's all just good. It breaks the mold, it challenges the status quo, and it's good for everything. The dynamic must just remain. It mustn't get complacent.
We're a country where good news is often a little thin on the ground, so this kind of good news is all the more welcome. Angela Lloyd, Columella, not just a 100-pointer, but one of the best in the world and delicious. Bravo to Eben and Paul Jordan, who guides the Sadie wines through the cellar. And Lisa Harlow, it's hard enough getting hold of Eben's wines without Tim giving him 100 points again. But South African wine, so exciting at the moment. So many good wines to choose from. I want to come back to a question or two around that in just a moment, Eben. Let's jump over. You got red wine of the year with your 100-pointer. 99 points, so almost there was Chris Alheit with that magnetic north. Chris, welcome to the show. Lovely to have you with us. What does it feel like when you get a 99-pointer from a wine critic on the scale of Tim Atkin?
Hey Dan, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's a pretty good feeling, I'd say. I was on that farm a few hours ago with the farmers, and I think a big part of the joy there is chatting to them, and we've known these people for quite a few years. They're just as excited about the good response that their vineyards is getting, as we are. So we feel like it's very much a shared experience. And I just echo what Elizma said earlier. It's cool. You get awesome messages and phone calls from friends and family, and everyone's excited. So it's lekker. It's a good feeling. Yeah.
Making that very clear. Look, it's a really well-deserved one because the wine is absolutely splendid. At what stage do you start getting a feeling that this is more than just very good? This is actually wine it's gone to a really special place.
Well, that vineyard, we've been working with that vineyard since 2013, and every year it's very, very good. So I think in a vintage like 20, where for some reason it just really hit its stride, it's going to make something spectacular. We pretty much knew from, by the last quarter of the fermentation, I knew something was up. I knew that there was something going on in that wine. Even at the press tray, I thought it was pretty spectacular. And I remember actually in the harvest time, I remember my winery interns taking photos of me taking photos of the grapes, because I hadn't seen grapes like that in my life. So yeah, I mean, I guess it was just a bit of a perfect storm for that vineyard. But it really is a great vineyard. The winemaking is very simple, and it's the same winemaking we use for all of our vineyards. So it's really a special place. I think that's the most important message.
You talk about getting plenty of messages, as Elizma did. How many people you haven't heard from since school days have suddenly appeared on Facebook wanting to be best friends and find out if they can just get a case or two if possible?
Yeah, that actually happens quite a bit. Almost as much as in that first hard lockdown we had last year. Suddenly, as a winemaker, you've got all these friends you didn't realize you had. Everybody wants to know if they can get a bit of wine. But yeah, it is cool, and it does. You're obviously now watching a show like this. You see the romantic side of it when everything's gone right, and people are patting you on the back, and you get interviewed by Dan Nicol and all this stuff. But there's a lot of hard work in the background. I mean, everyone on the show will tell you there's a lot of graft, and I mean, like Charles Back has been at it for decades, and Eben, I know how hard he works. Everyone grafts, so it's nice to get a bit of recognition for that.
which you certainly have. You're also getting support. Unsurprisingly, Daryl Balfour says he's drinking an outright wine while watching the Winter Feast and chose the 2015 Flotsam and Jetsam Cinsault, just a stunning wine. So pleased to have stocked up on Magnetic North. Lucky you if you have some. Right, well, we've built up through our Winemaker of the Year, our Young Winemaker of the Year, Best Red, Best White. Now let's jump over to somebody who I think will have had an impact on every single one of our winemakers. In fact, most winemakers in South Africa, because it's been a long-standing influence and a considerable one for the very first time, which is a poor reflection on me, I'm afraid. A very warm welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, to Charles Back. Charles, lovely to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. It's great meeting up for the first time.
I was trying to work it out, Charles. I lost count at about 8,000 for the number of awards that you've won during this extraordinary winemaking career of yours. What does this one mean? What does this one say to you about both how Charles Back is seen and about how South African wine is seen from around the world?
First of all, I'd like to swap it with Peter-Allan or Eben. Do two benefits to that. One, my price of my product will go up, and secondly, I'll be much younger. But coming back to the award, it's always great. I mean, you think you're unnoticed and people just take you for granted, plugging away at what you do. And I've been doing it for 43 years, as you can see. So it's been a long, hard slog, and it's nice at this stage of my career still to be recognized as contributing to the South African effort, which is the core of what I try and do, is to try and drive the South Africa category internationally.
The Charles Back story is an incredible one. If we go back down the family tree and the Lithuanian connection and how your family set up and you moved into the wine business yourself. Very difficult question, given that there are 43 years worth of winemaking to pick from. But can you give us one or two of the biggest highlights, the fondest memories that you have over these 4 decades and more of making wine?
I think the night that I received this award, I had my team around me, and I think 7 winemakers in the team today, or 5 winemakers and 2 cellar managers, and collectively they had 160 years of working together at Fairview or Spicewood. And to me, that has been the reward, and having been able to play a small role in 250 people lives who work with me in wine. I think those are the most rewarding things. There are lots of disappointments along the way, as naturally would be, but there are a couple of highlights always keep me going, and seeing people empowered and people making a difference in their lives and utilizing wine as a tool or a vehicle to be able to drive change in people's lives. I think that's been the most rewarding. I would also like to add quickly that I would like to see an award for cheese and winemaker combination. I'm waiting for that award to come out.
I think that might get sponsored by Fairview, just to be absolutely sure it goes to the right place. Charles, you talk about the people you've worked with, the experience that those people have. Amongst the things you can lay claim to is helping to kickstart the career of one of our other guests, because if I'm not mistaken, it was you who took a punt on a young guy called Eben Sadie and gave him one of his first jobs.
I think it was his second job. I think he'd worked at Romanstrafiek Co-op, if I remember correctly. Yes, and our paths did cross, and I'm very fortunate for the time that we worked together. And I think from working at Spicewood, he actually fell in love with the Swartland, which has been a major benefit to Swartland and the South African wine industry. So yes, and we are still connected, and I'll forever be grateful for the contribution he made to establishing Spicewood in the Swartland. And hopefully he will think the same about me playing a role in his career to establish him as a Swartland beacon.
Well, we'll ask him that very question in just a moment. Before we do, though, did you notice at the very start, much like an 8-year-old Cristiano Ronaldo was already destined for greatness, did you see something in this young winemaker that said this guy could be one of the greats?
No, immediately when I met him, I knew that he's definitely going to be wanting to do his own thing very soon. And I think we played a role in letting him make his first vintages of Kulamela in Spicewood, and I always knew he was going to move on. And, you know, there are lots of, I've been involved with lots of winemakers, and I'm very blessed to have 2 people in my team at the moment, Anthony de Jager, who I think is the most unsung hero in the wine industry in South Africa because of his absolute modesty and how and the humility that he displays every day. He's a great winemaker. And on the other end, I've got Charles Duplessis at Spicewood, who I think his ability of interpreting terroirs effectively he does, and his viticultural knowledge makes him also a standalone as far as I'm concerned. So with Eben there for sure, and then I also rate the other 2 guys in my team very highly as well.
Well, let's go back to Eben. Stretch the memory for us a little, if you will, Mr. Sadie. Do you remember the first encounter with Charles and what it was like working with him?
It was my best job interview ever. You know, he didn't really ask me very many things about my studies and my accolades. We spoke about 15 minutes. He said, "You got the job," and he gave me 2 tickets to the rugby to go to Newlands. That was about the interview. You know, Charles has I think he has the ability, his judgment of character of people has allowed him to build an enormous empire. He knows how to work with people. He can see talent in people. And, you know, that as he's just mentioned, you know, 250 people at Fairview, you know, it's a big responsibility. And I share the same view, you know, at our small winery, we currently 35 people, you know, from management down to all the guys in the vineyards. And I also think, you know, you look back, you would have made very many wines and very many things, but in the end, it's the people and the people's lives that you spend with every day, and the privilege to share that space together. That's also for me, you know, now in the beginning, you just see the wine, but right now I'm at a different space in my life. Maybe I'm just getting older, but, you know, you still see the wine, but you see the people definitely much more.
Which I think speaks volumes of Charles and why he received this particular award and this recognition. From a wine contribution perspective, Eben, for people who are watching this, and Charles Back is maybe not somebody they know particularly well, what do you think in the wine world has influenced Tim Atkin's decision to say, this is my legend?
I think the fact that, you know, Charles has been at the for a very long time, and you know, you need to in order to keep the stoke alive, you know, you need to have drive, and Charles has got the drive. You know, most guys that would have achieved as much as Charles have achieved at this stage would have basically gone back and sit on their laurels, but he's still at it every day. You know, he's not. I'm very, you know, I'm very inspired by somebody, you know, and it's, I mean, I'm almost 50 as well, so I'm also getting older, you know, but that you get at that stage where, you know, still you've got the stoke and you still want to achieve and you still want to push the envelope. And that is where Charles is at. You know, most other guys his age, you know, they're looking at sell-by dates, but Charles is not that guy. When he gets on a bicycle, he rides it full out. When he, you know, he's a competitive character, but I think, you know, all the guys at the end of the South African wine fraternity that's bringing the big change about, all the players are people that are, you know, driven and they're competitive and they want to excel, and that is, and it's good for country, it's good for everybody that's in that team format, you know, and yeah, Charles is the fitting character for that category.
Well, congratulations to you, Charles. I think that's another endorsement on top of the one you've already got there from Eben. Some lovely words. Elizabeth, let's have a look at this report as a whole. Tim puts in a remarkable amount of work. I'm not quite sure how he does all of it. How important is this, aside from just a great nomination for you, for everybody else on the show today, but for South African wine as a whole, that we've got someone as influential as Tim Atkin, who's taking the time to review South African wine, but also reviewing it in, by and large, some pretty praiseworthy terms.
Look, yeah, he's got a big responsibility to portray our country, not even from as he said, some cooperative wineries are doing a stellar job, you know, to to amazing producers like Chris Alheit and Eben Sadie. You know, it's to understand the scope of that and to put it in retrospect and look at it and go, we're so fortunate as a country. With Eben talked about it, the fact that we've got so much diversity. But to sum it up, for somebody to look at the report and go, wow, where do I start? You know, Tim has got an amazing ability to explain wine to not even just people that live wine like us every day, but to just a wine lover out there, and in a very understandable way, a very connective way. You can really get into the wines without, if you can't even buy it, you can really get into the wines. I love how he just describes our wines, and he understands us and our country, and he understands our terroir, and he really has a way of, as I said, communicating that to the international consumers and critics and other wine lovers. So for me, Tim Atkin, we all love him, we all respect him so much. He feels like a friend to us, but what's most important is he needs to translate our passion and our durability, our love for our country and our love for our own wine in a certain way that the broader spectrum of people can understand it. And he does a stellar job. I mean, there's no words to even explain how amazing this guy is. He's got an amazing palate, but his passion and his love for our country and our people is what shines through his report every year. So that you can read in just the introduction every year. And I love just the first page. I get so excited, almost like watching a Springbok game. So,
Chris, when you get these kind of results from somebody like Tim, it has, and I think you've already alluded to it, it has a very big impact on the commercial side of the wine. How difficult is it to resist the temptation to say, right, well, you know, we can let's somehow make another 100 cases of this, and we can buy Barbados and live on yachts in the Mediterranean and just take advantage of all of this, and to just keep to what you're doing? Or does it in fact nudge you to say, well, you know what, maybe we should be doing a little bit more given how much our wine is clearly liked around the world?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, I don't think I need another yacht or another island. I'm happy with the ones that I've got.
Fair enough.
No, Dan, look, the thing is, a wine like Magnetic North is limited by nature because it's a small vineyard. You know, it's 2.3 hectares, I think, and there's some pretty big holes in the vineyard because it's an old vineyard. So no, we can't make a lot more of that. In fact, very few of our wines are actually scalable. Cartology is slightly scalable, and not really, because I'm pretty harsh on the wines, to select the parcels for that wine. So I think contentment is a good place to be, and just try to be proud of the wines and confident with every bottle that you send out, that that bottle is going to be a good ambassador for what you're trying to do and for the message you're trying to send out, without compromise. I think that hopefully then the wines will be perceived as more valuable, because every wine is sort of 100% effort wine. You know, there's no also ran wine. Every wine is maximum effort. And then perhaps the value of the wines will continue to go up. That's probably my answer, I'd say.
Like the first one, I don't really need another island or another yacht. It's a bit light, Chris Alheit. Peter-Allan, what about your, I won't say conundrum, but your challenge? You have both Crystallum and you have Gabriel's Club. We've had a similar conversation in the past, the juggling of these two. Does winning this sort of award make it easier, make it more difficult to run those two brands, to manage the wine from both of them, to deliver the same sort of quality and attention to detail to them both at the same time?
Well, I don't know yet. You know, it's been a couple of days. You know, so I suppose we'll find out. But look, I'm fortunate to have just really, really good people working under me, and kind of support of of my father-in-law, of my wife. You know, it's really it wouldn't be possible to be able to kind of work and manage both brands without the incredible people. You know, I've got Katharina Muller, Nina Muller in the cellar at Gabriel's Kloof. We've got a team that's 4 out of the 5 cellar team at Gabriel's Kloof are ladies, which is fantastic. Chris Alheit, I've got an assistant, Albert Anikak, who's producing a bit of his own wine. And, so it really is just about building up that support base and having people that work with me, that I trust and that are doing a great job.
The award, do we now see on bottles going forward a little Winemaker of the Year, Tim Atkin sticker? Has it been prepared?
Yeah, it's going to be in gold, foiled. No, absolutely not. I really am, super chuffed to get the accolade. But we're not going to be putting it on any of our bottles.
I think you should, and I think you need to throw some modesty out the window and celebrate what you've done. But at least we all know and are very proud of what you have done. Angela Lloyd saying Charles Back is one of South African wine's great innovators. Never a dull moment or wine at Fairview. Happy to have known Charles for all of his 43 years of winemaking. Charles, that does give you quite a unique perspective. It's very easy to get caught up in the moment at times like this. Here's a big critic saying South African wine's in such an exciting place. Give us a little bit of your perspective across the 43 years. How excited, how comfortable, how positive are you feeling about the South African wine industry at the moment?
If you go back to the beginning, there was prison laborers working on farms, working for no money whatsoever, for no pay whatsoever. If you take that as a starting point, that's where I started, and where we are today, it's been a dramatic shift. It's unbelievable. And unfortunately, there's more work to be done. We need transformation in the wine business. It has to happen at a very, very urgent and rapid rate. Otherwise, we're going to run into trouble. We all got this golden egg at the moment. We're on top of the world as far as quality is concerned, but we have to translate that into meaningful transformation. Another big thing was, I think the big shift was our viticultural prowess has changed dramatically. I remember 30 years ago, viticulture would be a guy driving around in a bakkie shouting commands through the window to farm workers, disempowered, disenfranchised farm workers. Today, it's a completely different ballgame. We've got skillful people who know how to manipulate vineyard, how to motivate and train people. So that has been the dramatic shift. And that is what has been, I've been very fortunate to be part of seeing this whole transformation take place in my lifetime in wine.
I think it's a really important point, and one that I think we're getting something of a handle on, although there's certainly a lot more work to be done. If you could take all of that experience and distill it into a few words, we've got some young winemakers. I think even still a young winemaker, as much as you might argue otherwise, but talking to this next generation of rock stars, what would be the essence of what you've learned, Charles, that you'd like to pass on to these guys and them to pass on to their next generation about what really makes this business work for you?
It's a tough business. They know that already. In 10 or 20 years of winemaking, you would have worked out it's a tough business. I think number one is believe in yourself. Number two is integrity. Number three, don't compromise on quality. And number four, never give up. Whatever comes your way, you don't give up. You can throw a drought at you or whatever it is, you never give up. And that's the only way you'll succeed in this game.
Well, if you want somebody who proves that those words work, he has just been speaking to you, and that is why he is Tim Atkin's legend. Eben, probably the biggest criticism of the Tim Atkin Report, and I know you messaged me earlier today saying, Dan, please bring this up because it's a big, big hole in the Tim Atkin Report, and one that I know you feel quite serious about. There is yet again no award for the Surfing Winemaker of the Year, Mr. Sadie.
No, but as Charles says, he doesn't get rewards for his cheese either, so maybe it's just a fair deal.
It does lead to quite an important question, and I know Peter-Allan is also a bit of a star surfer amongst many in the wine industry. That sense of balance, because you guys do work so hard, you put in such long hours, you travel all over the place managing vineyards. How important is it for you to have, in your case, something like surfing that just allows you to get away and to clear the head and to set winemaking aside for a few hours?
No, I think sport is pivotal. I think, you know, when you produce wine, you kind of live and sleep and eat and drink, and it's, you know, it's everywhere in your life, but, you know, it can become an obsession. It can become out of balance. So, yeah, sport's very, very important, you know, and for me, the great thing about surfing is you go into, you know, when you take any human into the ocean, you know, it's not our domain. It's not out there. So you require, and especially if you start surfing bigger surf and heavier waves, you need all of your skill to be out there and to operate. So you enter into space where you're completely plugged out. And yeah, it's a place where I feel very, very alive as well. So yeah, I think, you know, but you'll find most wine producers have got some sport or some serious hobby, because you need to plug out. If you otherwise you're not going to make the distance.
Elizma, what's your escape from the day-to-day rigors of making wine?
Mountain biking. So it's always been a huge love of me since I've started in the industry. But now with 2 toddlers, it's hard. So that's basically my weekends are surrounded with my boys. But they're getting there. So we'll hit the dirt soon together. I've got my oldest going onto the mountain bike as we speak. So hopefully, but that's a huge passion, and I've been doing cross country my whole life, so you'll find me in the mountains, either in the vineyards or on a mountain bike.
I remember our conversation about just the work you do in the farm and how much you love being out on the land. So mountain biking does make plenty of sense for you. This rise of both your career and also the Olifantsberg brand, are you starting to see the rewards for that? Are you starting to see more people inquiring internationally about the wine, more restaurants wanting to know where they can get it, more people just seeing what you're doing, understanding how good the wine is and trying to be a part of it?
Yeah, I think I've always believed you need to walk the pavement. So I walk the pavement a lot. I spread my message. It's quite a personal message the last 5 years. When you believe in something quite as strong as I do, I want to tell people about it. But again, as Eben said earlier, sometimes you make a wine and it doesn't connect to it. I never force it. If it's a natural connection, I love it. I love sharing all of my wines with people and if they're connected, as I said, then for me that's an easier way to spread the message. But at the last 2 years, I've found that by making wines that are true to my style and to our place, people have a natural to understand it. I don't force my hand at all. I learn from the best, and they're all surrounding me tonight. I listen to their messages and their stories that they share with their customers, which is quite a natural truth. And so for me, internationally, we're growing slowly but surely. But again, staying true to our place is important. So if that takes a little bit longer, I'm more than happy to wait. It needs to come really naturally. That's my kind of motto. So yeah.
There's a wonderful sense of shared philosophy amongst all of you as guests this evening, and I love hearing it. It's the wine coming first, very much, and rightly so. And Chris, what about going forward? You've got this 99-pointer. Your wines are well celebrated, as are you as a winemaker. You've already told us, much to my dismay, you can't make any more Magnetic North, so I'm going to have to try and bribe Derek Kilpin again. But taking the brand forward, taking your story forward, what do the next few years hold for you?
Dan, yeah, just before I answer that question, just a quick shout out to Daryl and Angela, that we need to put together that cartology vertical soon in Cape Town. And also just to mention that I did actually also work for Charles in 2004. I did my first vintage at Fairview. It was an amazing experience. I loved it. Dan, going forward, man, I've talked to Peter-Allan and to Eben about this quite a bit. My primary focus right now is family. I want to be a family man, and I want to do a good job there. So right now, what we're doing is trying to refine the processes in the vineyards, really pay a lot of attention to the vineyards and just do the winemaking right. I've got a very good assistant winemaker now in Gabriel Dubois. And before him was Franco Lawrence, who did a great job. So, we've got help in the vineyards also in the form of Etienne Tablanche. So we're very small, but we've got a team, amazing people, and like Eben said, it really is a game of people, and relationships. So now I want to be content and do the family man thing as well as I can, and refine the wines by working hard in the vineyards. There will probably be 1 or 2 more single vineyard Chenin over the next few years. But the radical projects that I dreamt up when I was in my mid-20s, I'm going to shelve those until I'm in my 50s and 60s, I think, when I actually have a little bit of time again. But right now, it's just full on, 3 kids and a busy family life. That's my answer.
Well, good for you, Chris. It's great to hear. And if you were watching there and you saw a lot of bright lights in the background, you might have thought, well, that's probably just the sun. It's actually not. Those are the flashes from the wine paparazzi and people getting selfies as the great Chris Alheit drives by. Such is the impact this man has in wine circles. Guys, I've got one last question for each of you. And Peter-Allan, as our winemaker of the year, I'll jump over to you first of all. You've all got great reason to celebrate. If you could pick one bottle of wine that you've made yourself over the course of your career, and I'll ask everybody the same question, and then a second bottle of wine that somebody else has made that you've absolutely loved or have a particular affinity for a particular reason, what would those 2 bottles be? Starting with you, Mr. Winemaker of the Year.
The picking somebody else's wine is a lot easier than picking one I've made, but it's probably the 2008 Cuvée Cinema first Pinot Noir that I made. Well, the first Pinot Noir that I made that made it to the market. Let me revise that, because the first Pinot Noir that I made in 2007 didn't make it to the market for good reason. And then the 2008 Cuvée Cinema was, really kind of, I suppose, showed me that I could do it, that I could make wine and apply myself and do something decent, which was fantastic. And then somebody else's wine. Wow. I'm gonna go to Eben here, and I worked for Eben for 3 weeks in the Priorat in 2007, and his Ditstar Terra red that he made from Priorat. Tasting those wines really had a massive impact on me. The concentration and power of those wines was still being light. And that whole experience that I had with Eben in 2007 just left a massive mark on me. And I think, had a big influence on the kind of wines that I'm trying to make today.
Couple of great wines. One other to maybe throw in the mix, which I happen to have here. Where would this one rate, Peter-Allan?
That was my brief love affair with the Swartland and making reds from the Swartland. Paradisum is the Rhone style blend that I made between 2011 and 2014. I lost access to a particular Syrah vineyard in the Swartland that formed the base of that wine. And I had joined Gabriel's Kloof in the middle of 2014, so decided to stop making it. And it's not very well known, but there are a couple of people that ask me fairly regularly on when I'm going to make it again. And the answer is with a fairly high degree of certainty that never is it going to be made again.
I've got 2 bottles of it. I shall cherish them at an opportune moment. Elizma, what about you? The bottle of wine that you're pulling from your own collection that you've made, and then a bottle from somebody else that together you'll be celebrating with.
Sure, that's such a hard question. In 2015, when I started at Olifantsberg, I was fortunate enough to blend the first white blend we made, the Blanc, which was Grenache Blanc based. It was made by Jacques Duplessis, which was the previous winemaker. He's now at Oak Valley. That wine opened my eyes to new possibilities. But my ultimate wine I ever made was a 2018 Grenache Blanc, which earned me a spot in Decanter, which used to be a huge dream of mine when I was younger, when I started a few years ago. That was a huge moment for me. So I have to say that's my go-to. I know it's youthful wine, but I only have been for the last 5 years at Olifantsberg, but then that made me shift gears in my own head. Oh, the wine, somebody else. I've had wines from all of the guests tonight. They all inspire me. But I've never made a shout out to a really good friend of mine. So I'm going to say it tonight. Samantha O'Keefe's 2014 Syrah, Reserve Syrah that earned the top 50 wines of the world, according to Wine Advocate. Definitely open to Syrah. So yeah, it has to be that one.
Oh, good call there, Elizma. That is a terrific wine. I've got some of that 2014 Viognier sitting in my cellar. Sadly, I think I'm out of the Syrah, but a great winemaker and two lovely picks. This is going to be an interesting one. Eben Sadie, what of your thousands of 100-point winning wines would you pick as the best of the lot to celebrate with? And then which other wine would you be choosing?
I think of the 2002 Columella. Somehow it was like an atypical vintage. So it was rainy that season, something that we don't really get. 2002 was a disaster for most regions in South Africa because of all the rain in harvest. But for the Swartland, when you get a little bit of rain in harvest, you actually produce a very atypical wine because the region's just not at all accustomed to that. So it's kind of that one wine we've produced that we've never produced again, from a expression and emotion. So I always love to open that wine because it's kind of this once-off. It's a bit of a unicorn in terms of vintage character. And then earlier this year, I was very fortunate to taste a bottle of 1934 Groot Constantia Cabernet Sauvignon. And all I can say is I've been very privileged to have tasted very many great wines, not only from South Africa, but of the entire world. But this 1934 Groot Constantia Cabernet Sauvignon was kind of a reawakening of the capacity this country holds to make wine. I've been fortunate to have tasted wines from the famous 1928 vintage in Bordeaux, their 34, their 38, their 45s. And all I can say is that wine, pound for pound, punches hard as any wine made in those 2 decades of the world. So, South Africa is a good place to make wine. And we're all very, very fortunate to live, work here, and be part of change.
What an absolutely fabulous choice. What a wonderful story of such an old South African wine holding itself so well. Eben, thank you. 2 terrific wines. I think we're not sure if we'll find the 34 Constantia, but we'll certainly be on the lookout for some 2002 Columella. Penultimate question, and it's the same one. We send out to you, Chris Alheit, your wine of choice that you've made and wine from somebody else.
Sorry, Dan, you broke for a second there. Would you repeat that?
Sure. If you're celebrating with 2 bottles of wine, the best one you feel you've ever made, and wine from somebody else you'd like to add into the celebration.
Okay. So I think the wine that I'm the most fond of, probably for personal reasons, that we've made is a wine called Radio Lazarus from the 2012 vintage. Because it was a vineyard that we'd found and kind of tried to nurture, and we were quite new in our journey with making wine, and it was a very special time in our lives. And I had a bottle recently, and it's looking so good. I'm so pleased with that wine. And it was also, our daughter Elizabeth was born, so we picked that on the 6th of March, and Elizabeth was born on the 8th of March. So I remember she was born, and then I went up to the winery again after she was delivered to go and clean the press. So that wine is just as old as she is. So for me, it's a very special wine. It was our first single vineyard Chenin too, which is something that we're pretty well known for now. And then somebody else's wine that It might seem like quite a humble wine, and probably not a wine that was I don't know if it was intended to be so inspiring, but it was probably my most inspiring South African wine in my career. Was actually a Sequillo, oddly enough, not a Sadie family, because I couldn't afford those at the time, but it was a Sequillo White 2007 that my mom and dad drank a lot of Sauvignon Blanc, and they still do. And I was trying to, and I brought them this wine. I was like, guys, look at this wine. You could just taste this wine. This is what South Africa can do. I was so excited about the potential of South African white wine. And that was kind of the wine that started that thought process very clearly, or at least cemented that thought process that this was something to get psyched about, and that you could actually build a winemaking life on trying to find that South African white wine and tell that story.
I have fond memories myself of Sequillo. I think I've still got a little of the red, sadly none of the white, but I think it's played a big journey in many people's wine love affair, and clearly one there for Chris. Let's go over to our legend to wrap up both the show and this line of questioning. Tough one for you, Charles. Back in 43 years, which bottle of wine do you choose, and which is the other one from elsewhere you'll be adding to the list?
That's a difficult question. At Fairview, at 65, you're supposed to retire, and I'm past that date. So I'm officially retired, which is going to give me enough time to make the bottle of wine that I already consider to be my best. The challenge is out there, and I would like to be the young winemaker of the year. And I'd also like to make the red and white wine of the year. So it's not in my collection. It's hopefully what I'm going to do in the future. If I look back at another winemaker's wine, my late father, who Angela knew very well, was a very competent winemaker, and he never in his lifetime got the recognition he deserved. And I think the 74 Fairview Shiraz is the one that I admire the most, and I would love. It's just such a pity there's not more of it around, that a lot of other people can taste that wine and see the type of passion and fortitude he brought into the product. That would be my one from another winemaker.
What a perfect wine to finish off an episode that's got a lot of feedback from. Elizabeth Bardan, what wonderful people in the South African wine industry. Well, they certainly are, Elizabeth, and we've seen that this evening. Ina Smith, congratulations to everyone on your show today, Dan. To quote Tim in his report, the best South African Chenin Blancs are world class. Cannot agree more. Drink Chenin. And don't forget, Ina and her Chenins will be on 12 o'clock Thursday with that special edition of Dan Really Likes Wine. Chris Hugo, I love Olifantsberg wines. Congratulations, Elizma. Melissa Sutherland, what a wonderful and inspiring episode, Dan. Thank you. Thank you for watching, as you do so often, Melissa. And Angela drank the 1974 Fairview Shiraz at Charles's 40th anniversary. It was fantastic, unoaked too. Well, there's a surprise. Angela, thank you. Thank you, Daryl. Thank you, everybody who's chipped in this evening. But thank you to 6 people. 5 of them have been on the show this evening, and they're all wonderful people who don't just make terrific wine, but also give us such fantastic stories to tell, which is what this particular show is all about. So to Charles and to Eben and to Chris and to Elizma and to Peter-Allan, thank you all so much. But also thank you to Tim Atkin, who couldn't be with us. He's on his way to his holiday in Spain. But Tim, thank you for your constant support of the South African wine industry and for showcasing just what talent and what wine we have here in South Africa. I can see Chris is driving off the paparazzi in pursuit again, so we won't hold him back. I think Eben's doing much the same. Guys, to all 5 of you, thank you so much for being with us this evening. Lovely to have you on the show. Look forward to having you back again soon, to drinking plenty of your wine and to raising a glass once again to the success of South African wine, which you guys are such a big part of. So thank you so much. Really is greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
So there we go. Charles back, 43 years at Fairview, the Tim Atkin wine legend. 100 points for the Columella, Eben Sadie, the red wine of the year, white wine of the year, the Magnetic North, Chris Alheit, 99 points. Elizma Visser, the young winemaker of the year, and overall winemaker of the year, Peter-Allan Finlayson, continuing that remarkable Finlayson family legacy and doing so with such aplomb and yet still laid back as so many of our winemakers are. To all of them, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure having them on the show, pleasure celebrating the Tim Atkin Report, and a pleasure talking wine with some of the best in our South African business. Don't forget, tomorrow, look out online for that episode on Tang and the launch of Nikki van der Walt's Mirabelle, featuring Michael Frijon, Tinashe Nyamudoka, and Steve Steinfeld. Also, on Thursday, a special edition at 12 o'clock as we announce the Standard Bank Top 10 Chenin Blanc winners, and something special coming up on Thursday evening as well. But I'll leave you till then to look out for it. Thank you for all your support. Thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting South African wine. This is Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Pick n Pay. See you again soon. Goodbye. To join the Pick n Pay Wine Club, simply SMS your smart shopper number to 36775. It's absolutely free, and you'll get for yourself 3 times the smart shopper points on every bottle of wine bought. You'll also get a 20% discount on 10 different wines each month, a 25% discount on a case of wine, and a Magnum, some terrific competitions and invitations to awesome events.